Hi, everyone. I'm Lori Sylvia, and welcome to this rally chat on LinkedIn Live. It's actually our first LinkedIn Live, and I'm super excited to be here. Thank you all for joining us. And I am very excited to have as our guest Anthony Rodriguez from Wix. Hi, Anthony.
Hi, Lori. How are you? Nice to see you and nice to see everybody here.
Why don't we get started? I'll tell folks a little bit about Rally in case they don't know about it, and then you can share a little bit more about Wix, and then we're going to dive into what I think is going to be a really interesting topic, which is recruiting using your company culture, which I think is like super important these days. So, and you're doing some really interesting things there at Wix. So, why don't I start by just telling everybody a little bit more about Rally? So, Rally is a community of about 30,000 practitioners across recruiting and HR and marketing, learning the latest marketing and branding strategies. So, we focus on recruitment marketing, employer branding, and talent attraction. We have a website at rallyrecruitmentmarketing.com. Maybe some of you who are watching are part of the Rally community. If so, hi everyone, thanks for joining. And on this website, we provide lots and lots of resources like templates, idea books, how to guides, and we also host webinars once or twice a month. We also produce the highest rated free virtual conference called Rally Forward, which takes place twice a year in May and December. And the next event is coming up on December 8th. So I encourage everyone to register. We have an amazing keynote speaker named Todd Henry, who is the author of the Motivation Code, and we're going to dive into really understand like what's motivating candidates right now. And then we also produce the Rally Awards, which is the most coveted industry awards that recognize individuals and teams for outstanding work in recruitment marketing and employer branding. And the 2022 Rally Awards open up for entry beginning on November 1st. So, oh my gosh, it's like right around the corner. And most recently, we've launched a new analytics and benchmarking tool for our community called Rally Inside that helps you to understand how to attract talent to your employer brand by tracking and measuring and analyzing candidate engagement with your recruitment marketing content. So that's a little bit about Rally. I am the founder and CEO of Rally, and I started the company 4 years ago. And Anthony, we just passed our 4-year anniversary on the 17th, which I cannot believe it's been 4 years. So that's a little bit about Rally. But why don't you tell us a bit more about Wix, and then we're going to talk a lot more about you.
Sure. Thank you for passing it over to me, Lori. So Wix was founded in 2006 uh, under the belief that the internet should be accessible to everyone to develop, create, and contribute to it. Our headquarters is in Tel Aviv in Israel. That's where we have about majority of our employee count. And then we're also based in 12 different countries throughout the world and 8 locations in the States. This past couple of years, we've actually experienced tremendous growth. We now have about 6,000 employees globally, and in the States, about 1,500.
And I know you've been a big part of that growth with your role at Wix. So, all right, tell us first about your role at Wix. Tell me about your background and kind of how you came to work at Wix.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, throughout college, I really, like most people, did not know what I was going to pursue. I was working at Nordstrom at the time in retail. I did that full time for all 4 years of college. And the thing I knew most was that I really loved to like connect with people. In that job, I was able to meet with people from all different parts of the world that would come into our store, build relationships with them, understand what they were looking for, and then give them a solution. So right outside college, I joined Aerotech. It's a staffing agency, and in this role, I was really able to recruit on a bunch of different positions. So anywhere from like engineers and scientists to your general administrative staff. My market was the South Florida area, so Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and West Palm Beach. And yeah, it was a great position to have. I was there for 5.5 years and got to work with a bunch of different like companies. I stumbled across Wix because Wix was one of my clients. So at that time, I remember calling Wix's HR team and being like, hey, if you need outsourced recruitment, we got you covered. I have a strong team of recruiters that can help you with that. And one day they called me back. So I started recruiting on a bunch of roles within the company, help support recruitment efforts from more of a consulting side for a few months. And one day I received a call and they were like, hey, you know what? Why don't you just come work here in-house for us? You already understand our culture, our vibe, the Wix way, which is something that I feel like is tough to understand from an outsider's perspective. And I thought long and hard. I really wasn't looking for a job. But I feel like working in staffing, you kind of get a sense to which are the employers that people are truly, genuinely happy in. And I knew that that was the case at Wix. So I took the leap. I remember flying out for my last interview to San Francisco to meet with our department heads and thinking, if I get hired, I am taking it. And so I did. And here I am a little over 3 years later. I work as a talent acquisition partner here. And I love what I do. And I can talk more about that in a bit.
Yeah, I want to hear all about that. Well, first you said that you recruit in the Southern Florida area, and you mentioned Miami. So you're coming to us from Miami. I'm in Boston. I just want to ask like a quick question, which is because I've been to Miami a couple of times and it has amazing food and an amazing restaurant scene. Do you want to give a shout out to any restaurant or what's your favorite food there?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of really good restaurants. However, a shout out, I want to give it to my grandma. I love my grandma's cooking. So before going to any restaurant and paying for Cuban food, my background is Cuban. I prefer going over to her house and having some good old rice and beans. Yeah, unfortunately, she doesn't have a restaurant or anything. I'm sure she loves to like, whenever we do go back to the office, maybe like on a hybrid model, I could have her cook some good stuff for our team. But yeah, I would say her spot. If not, I don't know, there's a bunch of good places. I could always feel free to message me on LinkedIn afterwards. I can give you a ton of recommendations.
Hopefully at some point I will get back to Miami. Oh my gosh, the weather is
You
amazing.
have to come. You have to come. I know winter's approaching Boston, so I got some palm trees out my window. You gotta come check it out.
Yes, I'm very jelly. All right, so you mentioned the talent acquisition partner role, and how does Wix define that differently than a recruiter? Is it just a recruiter with a different name, or is your role there actually different?
Yeah, so our role is very unique. I've worked, like I said before, with a bunch of different companies, so I understand what most recruiters do and what most talent acquisition professionals do. What I will say is that here at Wix, talent acquisition is really seen as a strategic partner. Our leaders really lean on us and empower us to be the subject matter experts of the market. As a talent acquisition partner, we not only are responsible for bringing in talent, but we're responsible for building the team from the beginning. An example would be, right now, me working on a ton of projects with our leaders, looking not only at the talent that's coming in, but the talent that stays, a year, 2, 3 years out, and looking at experience levels, looking at, what we have on the team that we want more of, what's missing from the team regarding diversity that we want more of, and really being able to create things and think strategically. There's a lot of times that I'm constructing and deconstructing the recruitment process, constantly looking at data. And I think here at Wix, the biggest differentiator I will say is that we really have a quality over quantity approach when it comes to filling roles. So, yes, time to hire is important, right? Every manager I've ever spoken to says they need the position filled yesterday. But here at Wix, we really value hiring the right person, right? And there's been times that we've had a role open for 2, 3, 4 months because we really want to get the right fit the first time around. Um, and yeah, that's a little bit about the talent acquisition partner role and kind of how it differentiates amongst other recruiter roles.
Yeah, it does sound very strategic and also sort of in it for the long term, not very here and now and transactional. So it sounds like an awesome opportunity. You mentioned, Anthony, the Wix Way. And this was one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation with you, because I have huge respect for Wix and for the talent acquisition and recruitment marketing and employer branding team at Wix. And I think, you know, your culture is one of the reasons why candidates want to join your company. And right now, when we're in this labor shortage, when it's in maybe the most competitive hiring market that any of us can remember in recent years, that, you know, what is differentiating one job, one engineering job, for example, from another? And a lot of it has to do with the company itself and the culture of the company and the culture of the team. So take us into that strategy. Tell us first, what is the Wix Way? How do you describe that to candidates? And then how are you using that in your recruiting strategy?
That's a good question. And this is the moment everybody's been waiting for, right? Because the Wix Way is what we're here to talk about. The Wix Way is kind of like our vision. You know, it is where we all want to be and how we all want to show up every day at work. You know, our leaders, when we hit 1,000 employees, really sat down and they wrote the Wix Way as like a tool and as a guidance for all current employees and all future employees at the company. And again, like I said, it's kind of like the glue and the vision that holds us together, that we work hard to fulfill. The Wix Way has a couple points, but I'll kind of talk a little bit about my favorite ones. Here at Wix, our culture has a lot to do with owning what we do. You know, we are $1 billion organization. You know, to many people externally, they see Wix as this huge company, but most of our teams act very much like a startup. And that's how my experience has been here at Wix. I've gotten to work on projects where, you know, if I have an idea, I pass it by my supervisor and then I run with it and I own it. We measure everything here, which is another piece of the Wix Way. So if I'm running with this idea, I'm constantly looking at data and metrics and analytics to see, is this idea good? Should we continue using this idea? And then we also allow failure, you know, and I've failed multiple times here at Wix, and it's all about, you know, getting back up and learning from it. Here we think if you're not failing, you're not learning, right? And this is kind of how we view it. And then the last, you know, point of the Wix Way that I love to talk about is no assholes. You know, we really put a big emphasis on hiring people that are collaborative, genuine, honest, humble, and hardworking. And this is something that is like near deep in my heart. It's a natural way of doing things here, you know, and the first way that I will say how it applies to my role and how I use it every day is by embodying this, right? By like having these instilled in me by, you know, I think even before this call, like I had to look at the Wix Way and be like, what was it again? Like, what are the, you know, the 10 main points that are part of the Wix Way? They're all things that I know and I embody. You know, I may not have them memorized, but bringing it to work every day is kind of like the first way that it applies. How we showcase it to candidates, I think in a virtual world has been tough, right? Because back in the day, we would invite people to our office, you know, they would walk around and get a tour. They would see a bunch of other employees. They would see the Wix Way happening, right? They'd see collaboration. Right when the pandemic started, that we switched to virtual, we came up with culture decks, which has been really cool. So we
What is
created,
that?
yeah, so like a culture deck is almost like a presentation, you know, with a few slides. Kind of has some fun pictures of the office, talks about, you know, if we would be meeting, you know, in person, we'd probably be looking for a conference room for like 15 minutes before actually sitting down. It also talks a little bit about like our vibe, right, and the Wix Way and our values, and then has a few like employee testimonials. So we share this with all candidates before interviews. This way they already have like a sneak peek as to what it's like to work here. With the mass hiring that we've done, right? We've had a lot of hiring events. This was different. In the past, we used to have hiring events in person, right? So we would invite a bunch of people to the office, we would meet with them collectively and then separate into small groups. And we had to think creatively on how to kind of showcase the Wix culture through these events. We also invited current employees that are in the role to these events to speak to current applicants about the day in the life. They talk about the hard parts of the job, the fun parts of the job, how the impact that the role holds. I think that was also like a very creative way that we've showcased the culture. And then we've done a lot of employer branding articles. I think we have one on Wix blog site that's around failing, and that it's okay to fail. And we interviewed someone from our R&D team. We also have a couple of other articles around no assholes and just our vibe and our culture. And we share this with candidates throughout every stage of the interview process. We give them a little more and more to prepare them for the interview and to also make them feel comfortable.
I love this idea of a culture deck, and also bringing employees from the team onto the virtual hiring event. Like, candidates want to hear directly from employees. So if you've got people who are really committed to your culture and are those kinds of employee brand ambassadors, will give their time to be a part of your virtual hiring events. That must be an absolutely influential way to get candidates to think about Wix. And I love the no assholes. Actually, here at Rally we have no jerks. So and that was a bumper sticker that I've had for a very long time. So I'm with you on that one, 100%. So tell me a little bit more about, you mentioned, I think you said 6,000 employees, right? 1,500 in the US. What was it like, a year ago or a year and a half ago before the pandemic? How much growth has actually happened in the last year? And also, how has your role evolved there?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I can kind of take it back to when I started at Wix. So when I started here 3 years ago, we were around 150 employees, split between 4 locations. So Miami, San Francisco, New York, and LA. In the past year and a half, we've opened up 5 new sites: Phoenix, Austin, Cedar Rapids, and Denver. And we've grown, right, in 3 years from 150 to 1,500 employees in the States. So lots of massive growth. My role has definitely evolved. That's one thing with Wix, and I think one thing with working in tech in general. As the product evolves and changes, so does your role, right? And you have to be open to that change, and you have to adapt quickly. When I started here, I was really working on any role that came to my desk. I was on a recruiting team of less than a handful of people. And I was kind of involved in everything. I knew every role that was posted. I knew everything that was happening. And as we grew and scaled, we had to really focus on our team. And we're also hiring right now, which is also why we continue to focus, because we will be continuing to expand the US market. And our team has doubled in size. So we're now around 10 in the States. My role has shifted, and I've kind of focused on one particular business unit, which are our account management organization. This organization was non-existent when I started 3 years ago, and now is 300 employees globally. So really, really massive growth there. And I think me verticalizing and really specializing in this one business unit has helped me really become like a subject matter expert within the skill set, right? I've been able to network with candidates throughout the account management world in the US. I've been able to really be a partner to our business leaders. And I think the best part of my role is being involved in the hiring process and watching other people succeed, right? So I've been able to interview and hire so many amazing, talented professionals that talk about their personal and professional goals, in the interview, and then watching them actually achieve these goals, whether it be purchasing a home or starting a family or, getting promoted and managing their own team. Like I've been able to experience and see that firsthand, which is awesome. So my role has definitely evolved from being like a jack of all trades, supporting a bunch of, different positions, to really specializing in a vertical and being a true strategic partner to this team.
And Wix is one of those few companies, relatively speaking, that grew rapidly during this last year and a half, when a lot of other employers, many people from our community, were in the other direction, right? They worked at a company that had to lay off workers, had to furlough workers, the business closed down. But during that time, you guys were experiencing rapid growth. So I'm really interested. Can you share one or two of your top recruiting strategies that's been really effective for you, specifically this year, as the economy has been coming back, and let's say there's more and more competition from talent, from other employers for talent?
Yeah, I will say that it's definitely changed, right? So continuing the hiring pace from last year to this year, last year you would post the job and get, hundreds of applicants, and this year it's not the case. So what we've done this year is we've really continued to track and monitor data. We were really focused on shortening the length of candidates being in process. So an example or like a big achievement that I will say is early this year, we were tasked with hiring 200 account managers for our account management org in two new sites, that where we had Wix employees, but we didn't have account management presence. So I can talk a little bit about that strategy. Right when we decided, when we were given this goal within 6 months, hire 200, when the market was booming, we laughed, amongst our team. And we're like, okay, like, let's see what's going to happen. And then we sat down and we buckled down and we said, okay, how are we going to do this? We looked at LinkedIn Insights and we looked at the market to see like where were these account managers really like working at right now? Where were they leaving to? What companies? And we really jotted down like a list of companies that, that were either experiencing layoffs or having attrition. So we did a lot of like analytics and insights. And then when we got candidates, we really put them through the process as quickly as possible. These hiring events to kind of replace one of the interview stages, and to also get their buy-in. How amazing is it to like go to a hiring event and hear somebody that's in the role you're applying for talk about the impact that they're making? You're also able to like meet with the business leaders, really, just learn about the culture, the vibe, like everything there is to know about the position you're kind of getting yourself into. And in the end, break out into like more like more personal, like breakout sessions with like 2 or 3 candidates where you can ask questions to either someone that's in the role or one of the business leaders. I would say that was what was most successful and what was like a really good strategy for us. We were able to trim the time to fill, not even time to fill, like just the amount of time that the candidates took, from application date to hire date, by like 10 or 15 days. So it was really, really impressive and worked. We also had, in the end, a higher acceptance rate for our offers. And a lot of this had to do with, the hiring events that we held and the buy-in that the candidates had from the beginning.
And having the opportunity to ask questions directly of your team and hear from them directly, like it seems like it ended up being a very intimate hiring process. So those events can be super, super beneficial. I think probably just about most organizations are doing remote hiring or virtual hiring, and unless they have a job, obviously that has to be in person. But I really like the way that you guys have implemented that strategy by bringing your employees into the process. That seems really smart. So someone is asking a question, and then I'll ask you my last question. The question is, you've got 10 people now in your talent acquisition organization across the US. What's the most effective way of keeping you all connected together?
That's a good question, Lori. I think we've done a great job of always staying connected. Like being a global company, we always had our entire team kind of located in different parts of the world. WhatsApp is huge here at Wix, so we're constantly on WhatsApp. Like we have different groups and we're chatting back and forth. We have Slack channels and we talk on Slack. We also get to meet each other, at some points throughout the year. I'm actually flying out to Denver this week for a wedding, so I'll be able to meet some of my team members for the first time ever. Some of them have been here for over a year and I haven't met them, so I'm excited to be meeting them finally. And we do team events. So like every quarter we'll have different team innings. They used to be called outings, where we will have cocktails with each other. We'll talk about our day. We really just have like a connection. They really are my family, and I feel like sometimes I even forget that I've never met them in person because I talk to them so often. We always do video calls here, like at Wix. We never, it's very rare that we have our camera off. So I think that also helps, in this virtual world.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so you just have experienced rapid growth and have been recruiting during this time of rapid growth. What advice would you give to others who are now just starting to experience this ramp up in hiring? Like any pro tips or advice that you would share with them?
Biggest pro tip is before you dive in, right, to hire 200, 300, or even 50 people, sit down and prioritize what roles your team wants to focus on. I think a learning lesson for us when tasked with hiring these 200 is that it wasn't all the same role, right? We were hiring in that 200, there were managers, there were product experts, there were account managers. And, a few months into hiring, we realized, holy moly, like we've hired so many great employees, but we didn't focus on the managers, that were going to lead them. So if I were to go back and redo it all over again, or even for next hiring projects coming up, I would sit down, prioritize, and really think strategically about how this team is going to be built, and then take it from there.
Awesome. Well, thank you. This was fun to do a LinkedIn Live. I'm just so excited that you were the first to join us on this rally chat. I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it too.
I did. Hopefully we could do this in person someday. You can fly out to Miami. That'd be fun.
Yeah, especially if your grandmother's doing some cooking. I'm there.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Anthony. And thanks everyone for joining in. I hope to see you at the next Rally event, which is our Rally Forward virtual conference that's taking place on December 8th. So you can go to Rally Forward, rallyfwd.com and register there. So thanks again. Hope everybody has
Bye.
a great
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.